group stuff was all right, I guess, but the individual therapy is what really kind of started me back. And out of all the therapists there, the therapist I had was her husband was an MPD police officer. So she doesn't know police stuff, but she knows more than most people because she's married to one.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
I mean, beer, liquor, both.
But there had to come a point where you said, this is, now you got years of abuse, not only prescription medication, but also alcohol abuse. At some point, it's got to stop.
Right.
What was your come to Jesus moment?
Come to Jesus moment.
I remember for so long, it was like, you know, like any good alcoholic, I'd hide my vodka under the bathroom sink in the basement because nobody will ever find it there.
Toilet tank.
Yeah. I didn't go that far yet.
I get just... not in the toilet where you shit, but in the top.
Yeah.
Where you're giving an upper decker.
Exactly.
But, I mean, I remember looking in the mirror because I wanted to stop. I just couldn't do it. I would be driving home from D.C. and I'm like, I'm not going to the liquor store today. I'm not doing it. And I would pass the liquor store that I usually go to, and I'd end up past my house at the next liquor store. And I'm like, how the fuck did I get here, dude?
You just described every alcoholic's journey down, and I always try to pinpoint what that is that stopped you from driving past, or what stopped you at that liquor store. For me, I think, and I'm not 100% certain, it's the fear. It's the fear of having to go through the withdrawals, feel the normalcy that I didn't want to feel, because my normal wasn't normal. So I think that's what it was.
I mean, it was 100% that. Yeah, I didn't want to feel the shakes or the sickness, or I didn't want to feel anything, which is why I just kept doing it.
Do you think it's self-conscious too? You know, you're starting to feel bad about yourself. Say, you know, if I just pass one liquor store, maybe I'll feel a little better because I passed that one. Then you stop at another one.
Let me just take a little bit to feel normal. Let me just a little bit. You know, I'm good. I'm just going to take a little bit. I'll feel normal, and next thing you know, normal turns into down your road. But there had to be one moment where you were done. Was something happen?
I went overseas for a trip, and my one of my sisters had married a Lebanese guy that still has family in Lebanon. So she was like, well, take a week and come to Beirut and, you know, we'll go party and stuff. And they actually got a really good party scene there. And I got so trashed the whole time there that by the time I flew back home, my sister had called my wife. And she goes, if Keith keeps doing this, he's going to fucking die. And so by the time I got home, my parents were there. My wife was there, and they kind of had like the family intervention type thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you resistant to it?
No. Well, no, I was not resistant at all to it. I knew I had to. Like, this was the punch in the face I needed, right?
He knew the jig was up.
And, I mean...
You're fortunate that they cared enough for you
correct,
to do that.
Yeah. And, you know, they all said good stuff and whatever, but it was... all I had to hear was what my wife said. She goes, you got one shot, or I'm taking the kids, and I'm out. And I'm like, okay. Like, I got it. Let's do it. And...
the ultimate leverage.
Yeah. But it's the thing that kept me from doing it when I wanted to for so long is my ego was kind of really big at the time. It's like, how does the one cop that works at the FBI with a top secret clearance that answers only to the chiefs, how do you make that phone call? You know what
exactly.
I mean? Like, how do you pick up the phone and make that phone call? But, you know, she gave me an ultimatum, so I said, fuck, I mean, that's more important than...
you know, making that phone call is a job ultimatum also.
Yeah.
You know,
it was. I thought my career was done.
Yeah.
I thought it was over.
So on a side note, until we start talking about your journey back up, I got a bone to pick with you Virginia boys.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
New Jersey cops cannot drive through Virginia and get pulled over without being called boy.
Really?
Oh, my God. You ever get pulled over?
They're still fighting a civil war.
Did you ever get pulled over in Virginia? I'm not lying to you. I'm not lying.
Was it Southern Virginia or Northern Virginia? Because that's kind of two different states. You know,
I don't
once
know,
you
but
cross Fredericksburg, it's a whole other state.
I got pulled over and they're like, boy, did you just call me boy?
We had a police caravan going down to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. Whole caravan.
I think I remember hearing this.
Virginia State Police pulled over the whole caravan.
I remember hearing that.
Boy, you don't speed through my state.
That was Southern Virginia.
Thank you, Sheriff Justice. So what was your climb back up like?
Rough. It was really rough.
Did you go away?
Yeah. I didn't know how it worked, right? So I called several people in my chain of command, and a couple of the first phone calls didn't go so hot. And then I called this one person, and he finally, like, smacked me in the face with some reality. You know what I mean? He's like, Keith, he's like, fuck the police department and fuck the FBI. He goes, the day you retire, they're not going to give a shit who you were anay. They're going to place you with somebody else, and the machine's going to keep moving. He goes, you need to take care of your family. And it finally, like, just hit me, dude. Because I was putting my career kind of first for so long. So I said, I appreciate that. And they said, just go. The paperwork will figure itself out. Like, I know, just let me know where you're going. So I went to a detox for 7 days, which was rough. I mean, you go in there and it's...
Did you tie one on before you went in?
No.
See, that's great.
No.
That's great.
You know, if my wife wasn't there, I probably would have, to be honest with you. But I didn't.
So when I went into rehab, I went in clean, sober, committed to the process.
So I had about a day and a half when I went up there. But it was, you know, how did I get here? I'm buck naked in a room with 2 nurses and a doctor having to squat and lift up my junk.
How did it come to this?
How did it
What
get
did I
here?
tell you? What did I tell you? That was about as sober as I was ever going to get, right there, when I had to bend over and cough.
Yeah.
And the guy said it winked at him, but that's a different story. That's a story for Penthouse.
That's
Forum.
how you stay sober now, isn't it?
Yes.
You bend over and cough every once in a while.
Well, I put the alcohol up there. Yeah.
But it was very overwhelming. And it's, you know, then it's like, hey, what if I locked up somebody that's here? Or what if I, you know what I mean? So then it's like, because I did with the feds, I did a lot of work in New Jersey. And that's where I went to detox in Union, New Jersey. And I'm like, dude, what's going to happen? Like, is it going to just pop off right there? Or, so sleep really wasn't a thing for the first couple of days. But, you know, I did do, like you said, man, I said, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And I went to all the group stuff. I went to all the individual stuff.
Did you tell anybody you were a cop?
No.
Yeah.
No. Nobody.
You want to go in there as
Yep.
inmate, whatever,
Yeah.
9274, you know?
I wasn't telling anybody.
Yeah.
But it was it was overwhelming. They found me a 30-day treatment back in Northern Virginia. It was a nice bougie
Country club.
it was in a mansion. We had a chef.
Not bad.
Yeah.
You should have signed up for an additional 30
Yeah.
days. I'm not
Well,
cured yet.
you know, I tell my wife when we get in fights, and I'm like, if you keep this up, I'm going to relapse just to go back to the mansion. Because I couldn't have a cell phone, and you couldn't get a hold of me. And it's just like, I went in there with the same mindset, and that's when everything started. Like, they're like, you have to go to group stuff. I didn't really, group stuff was all right, I guess, but the individual therapy is what really kind of started me back. And out of all the therapists there, the therapist I had was, her husband was an MPD police officer. So she doesn't know police stuff, but she knows more than most people because she's married to one.
You sort of have that mutual connection.
Yeah. And I just started talking about stuff that I've never talked to anybody about. This bothered me, that bothered me. She said, make a list. I made a list. And I was like, oh, you kind of feel better if you actually say it out loud. Isn't that something? And
what you did, my friend, is you trusted the process.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing in recovery, for my recovery, is I started to trust the process. Once I got a handle on that and know that there was going to be some difficult days and there was going to be some temptations along the road, but I have that ultimate faith in that process, and it'll get you through to the other side. Because when you get to the other side, your mind clears and the cobwebs start to fade out of your brain that has been medicated for so long and under this grip of addiction. Do you remember what your first sober thought was?
I'm glad it's over. And then I immediately kind of started thinking about how much time you wasted with this, like, years.
And that's the thing you can't get back.
No.
Yeah.
And then, that really hit home with my kid going to college. It's like, I wasted 2 friggin' years, 3 years, whatever it was, I was there and I still took him to practice and did but I wasn't, my head was.
You weren't the best version of yourself.
I was not.
You were there physically, but not totally emotionally.
And they saw it. My son was
They're smarter than you think.
Yeah. Well, he was almost 13 when I got sober.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter was like 7, so she remembers a little bit less, but he remembers most of it. And we have very frank discussions about it. Like I don't hide anything from him. Well,
especially going to college, you're trying to prepare him now.
Yeah.
You know, I look at my son too. Mike knows how close I am to both my boys, and my oldest son is only 14, and which means I had him when I was 14 years old.
Yeah,
about there.
I was going to say you were a late bloomer, but
and I'm looking at him being 14 years old. I'm like, geez, I got 4 years left with you.
Yeah,
and then you're out on your own. You're gonna be living your own life and starting to figure out how to be a man.
And now that he's in high school, watch how fast those 4 years go.
I can't. It scares the shit out of me every single day.
Him going to college hit me harder than I thought it was. It really did. Like that, you drop him off and you're driving back, and it was like me and my wife was like silence.
Well, I know you love your daughter. I guarantee you love your daughter.
Oh yeah.
But a man and his son, there's a special bond that's created. I don't have daughters because I would probably feed them McDonald's and rub Crisco on their face to make them as ugly as possible.
Well, I could talk to that.
Yeah.
Because I have a daughter who I had to send away to college, and she was athletic, smart, blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, and I had to send her to college.
Yeah. Yeah, you just you want to put a.
She starts high school next year, so buckle up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
So you get out of rehab. You do your 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
You come home. What's the atmosphere like in your house? Is your wife a little bit mistrustful?
Oh yeah. And rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go through the house and find all your
vodka
bottles under the sink?
Yeah, she cleaned out the garage. One of my hiding places. I used to do some woodwork. I just go in the garage and drink and do woodwork stuff. Last thing I made before I cleaned was a bar. It's actually a pretty nice bar, but I've never used it. But yeah, she found all that stuff. But one thing I wanted to say was the one thing they made us do in rehab was go to 12-step meetings. I don't know if yours did or not.
Yeah.
But they made us get into we called it the druggy buggy, the little bus, and we'd go. And I thought they were just horrible. I didn't like them. But I was so petrified when I got out of rehab because I still wanted to drink every second of the day because 30 days is not close to being long enough. I remember everybody saying, just get home, make it to one of these 12-step meetings. And I was like, I don't want to go to these meetings.
One
day at a time
thing. It works.
I was so petrified. I went to one of 12-step meetings, and I still go to 12-step meetings.
Great Bill W.
Yeah. Old Bill.
Good old Bill.
But I mean, I've got, I jumped in that thing too.
Now your return to the police department. That had to be an interesting thing.
My FBI boss at the time is an amazing person. We are connected forever. Before I left, I called her and she said, I got your back, dude, whatever. She goes, don't worry about it. This will be here when you get back. And I was like, whatever. But she fought for me, man. She put her own kind of career on the line. Because at first I wasn't going to go back to the JTTF, and she came in and vouched for me. She goes, I want him back. He did the right thing. He said he needed help, and I wanted it. So, but yeah, after 45 days, I mean, there was a pool in the office of where Shibley was. I think Bolivian prison was one of the top ones, but it was hard going back.
Did anybody look at you like sideways, or treat you differently?
No, the first guy was like, Shibley, where have you been? And it just came out, man. I said, rehab. And he goes, no, seriously, where have you been? I was like, no, dude, I just got out of fucking rehab. And at that point, I just had to rip the Band-Aid off, man. I mean, either you're going to talk about me or you're not anyway. So I just didn't hide it at all.
But in order to get sober and to stay sober, you have to be willing to give up everything.
Yeah,
you really do. And I learned Bobby Crudell, so he's a friend of ours, and he's got 4 years under his belt. And he said that, he goes, when I went away to rehab, I couldn't think about my children. Hopefully they would be there. My wife, hopefully she would be there, but I had to do this for me. I had to be willing to give up everything and break myself down to the foundation, to the bottom of the foundation, and start building myself back up. Now, your build-up, was it as terrifying as you expected? Because I'm sure you built it up in your mind. Like, I'm going to have to fight. I'm going to have to do this, do that.
It wasn't easy at all. But honestly, my wife was so supportive on everything. I mean, obviously the trust had to be built back up, but I I don't know why she stuck her. She had every right to be gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, she stuck it out, dude. And, but the buildup was rough, man, because you start feeling feelings you haven't felt in years. And feelings suck.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right.
Unless they're good feelings. But all the other feelings suck. And it's a feelings disease, man. You don't want to feel shit, so you get messed up. And one of the hardest things I had to learn was once that switch is flipped, it's not going off. Like, I thought honestly, when I went to rehab, I thought they were going to teach me how to drink responsibly again. I thought I'd be able to come out and they were going to. And I remember getting in a fight with my therapist. I said, "You mean to tell me I can't drink at my daughter's wedding? I can't even have champagne?" And she goes, "Keith, your daughter's fucking 7. But my brain would go there to start making excuses already. So it has a lot of reprogramming. A lot of reprogramming I had to do.
So how many years you got under your belt?
It'll be 6 in July. Yeah.
God bless, man.
And you have 6 years. Just think about if you fall.
Right.
Think about the 6 years of hard work that you've had to put in. That you'll never be able to get those 6 years back. You're going to be starting from square one, and you'll have to go through the whole process again. Hopefully, that right there, that fear of having to go back through that process, is enough to keep you sober. But more importantly, the love and support of your family. You sounds like you got a really good woman at home.
Yeah.
If you ever divorce her, give her our number because she sounds like a keeper.
All right. A few more years.
And the other thing is, the kids are old enough to realize it now.
Yeah.
They were probably too young to realize what you were going through. Like you said, your daughter was only 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
Now they're old enough to know.
Yep.
Like if you fall down that hole again.
Oh, it is. And I mean, I joke about it because I like to joke around, and I just took my daughter and one of her best friends to the beach for a couple of days for their spring break. And I'm like, hey, what if we all just have? She looked right at me. She goes, "You even think about it, I'll never talk to you again." I'm like, I'm just joking, like relax. But
one of the cool things about you is it seems like you're lighting the torch as you move up the ladder to lead people who are a little further down that ladder and give them a path to light the way. Like you didn't forget that feeling, because some people, we saw this in group therapy. Some people will leave group therapy after their retirement and never return, never give back, never pay it forward.
Like they went to group therapy just to get to retirement.
Correct. And that used to aggravate the hell out of me, because when you go through something like this and you don't pass it on to the next generation, shame on you. You're being selfish.
Yep.
What led you to try to bring others up?
I had one of our supervisors that came from another department. He said, "Hey man," he was new. He had just gotten hired in command staff. He goes, I heard you're pretty open about like your addictions. I was like, yeah. He said, well, this department's doing a video about mental health and substance abuse, and they're trying to find someone willing to talk about their substance abuse. I said, I'll do it. And that's just kind of what kicked it off. But yeah, it's pretty much my passion now. There's so many cops that are messed up, man.
Makes you feel good too, right?
I was going to say, your first speech, that had to be like gratifying and satisfying and
scary. It's very personal to get up in front of people and tell them this stuff.
Because alpha males never want to show weakness.
Right, but it's important. I mean, I think I had a couple of years. This was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. This officer called me that I never thought would call me. He's about 4 years my senior, someone I looked up to, still look up to. And he called me at like 2:00 in the morning, and he's bawling. He's like, "Dude, I can't stop." I'm like, "What's going on, man?" He's like, "I can't fucking stop." I'm like, "All right, well, what's going on?" And he told me about it. I said, "All right, man." I was like, "I need to ask you this. You thought about killing yourself?" And he's like, "I've had a gun in my lap." I said, "I'll be at your house in a couple hours." And went up there. He's like, "I'm not going to rehab." Talked him into rehab. And on the way there, it was like a 3-hour ride. On the way there, he said, "If you weren't open about your addiction, I would have killed myself." And you can't put a price on that shit.
No.
You can't do it. Like,
So
you can take all the medals and shit, awards I've gotten, you can't put a price on that stuff, man.
So here's what opening yourself up to your own personal trauma, whatever that may be, whether it's addiction, whether it's post-traumatic stress, whatever it may be. When you open yourself up and you allow yourself to be vulnerable, stuff like this happens.
Yeah.
I get to meet you. I get to connect with you. I get to connect with Mike. That's what opening my trauma up has done. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. There's people who judge you, like we spoke about on Instagram Live tonight. there's always going to be people who judge you because they don't understand the process. They may be stuck at a lower level, and they see what you've done, and you have now turned the mirror on them and say, well, if this person did it, why can't I do it? And then they start feeling bad about themselves. And that's not your point. That's not what you want to do. But if it's possible for you, it's possible for others as well.
I mean, I was thinking about this on the ride up here, man. I mean, it really, as messed up as it sounds, it was a gift. It really was. It was a fucked up gift to get, but
I've had better Christmases.
Right. But they got that cliche saying, but it's so true. Like, you can only keep it if you give it away to other people. If you keep it all for yourself, it's just going to fade away. So, and just remembering how broken I was, spiritually, mentally, physically, freaking broken. Like, I don't want anybody to feel like that. Even the cops I don't like. You know what I mean? I was like, I'll help any one of y'all if y'all call me at 2:00 in the morning, because it's just a horrible feeling.
I read something too. It said, showing weakness builds strength. Sometimes you got to show that weakness in order to build yourself back up.
And that goes up and down history. Read any type of historical document, any type of literature. The hero only reaches their full potential when they show their vulnerabilities.
Yep, exactly.
That is 100% true. So, Keith, what I want you to do for our audience so they can find you, because you're doing some really good work, why don't you give out some plugs? Give out your social media. Make sure people can find you.
Okay, I'm on, I guess my big one's LinkedIn. Keith Shibley at LinkedIn. And Instagram and Facebook is really all I have now.
Well, so we're going to put all that stuff in the show notes. So in order to find Keith, make sure you go check out the show notes, and also leave a comment for him, because he's doing great stuff here. He came all the way up from D.C., and thankfully you did, because that's an amazing story. And it's more common than people realize. And that's why I'm glad you're able here to come up here and open this up.
I appreciate y'all having me up here.
We appreciate you coming up. And like you said, your stories, there's a lot of people living your story right now.
So, Keith, we're coming to the end of this thing here, and we always end every show the same way. You've gone through this path to always wanting to become a cop, to get your dream job, to get the thing that you've been working for your entire life, only to almost lose it. And you've been through some
Marry
suffering.
your dream girl and almost lose that.
Yeah. But this stuff has taught you some stuff. So why don't you tell me what your suffering has taught you?
It's taught me a lot, you can be a masculine man and have emotions. You can express your emotions. You can cry. And that's okay. Like, you're not any less of a person. And this job it's an amazing job to have, but it's also, people don't talk about the price tag that comes along with it too.
It's a great job, but it has its consequences.
It does.
But the bottom line is it's just a job.
It is just a job. But, nobody knows cops better than other cops, And if you see one of your cops not acting right, or, coming in late, or looking disheveled, or say something. Because we all know cops that we've known for years that everybody's like, oh, that's the guy. And nobody ever said anything to him, man. And your conversation could spark him going and getting the help that they need,
You see a cop getting a getting a DUI. Well, nobody understands why you got a DUI.
Right.
Nobody's ever asked that question. He's just the dumbass who screwed up.
Or it is, they'll expect it. Oh, yeah, he's been drinking like that for years.
Yeah.
Why not say something?
We knew that was going to happen, and shame on you for not saying anything.
Yep.
I think the real thing that it taught you, who the real Keith Shibley is.
Oh, absolutely.
So, Keith, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate you. I know it's a quick hour. It goes fast, but you got a great story, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future. And now that you're here, you're always family. So when you do something, you have to share it with us, because we will share it with the world.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of an Advocate with Keith Shibley. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Lebanon bologna is delicious. There's good ways and bad ways that we all grew up. Addiction is a gradual progression. Kids are the ultimate leverage. Feelings suck. Trust the process, but most importantly, you have to prepare to give up everything in order to totally heal. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, get your digital business card, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok.
Ex-hamster.
Follow Mike at Mike_Falaise. Follow me at Realkevindonaldson. And of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We're going to see you on the next episode.